It's a good morning to you. Welcome to Asake Online. My name is Zenzele Ndebele, and this is the Breakfast Club. And every week we talk to our heroes, mostly ex-ZPRA people, to try and find, understand how the liberation struggle was fought. But also our idea is to make sure the history is known. A lot has been written about the liberation struggle. And when people, those who won the country, were writing patriotic history, the history of ZPRA was written out of the textbooks. You hardly hear anything about the ZPRA and their battles and their successes. Yes, they were not perfect, but there's a lot that they did. There's a lot that they contributed. And the aim of this program is to talk to them, to hear their side of the story, and to add to the rich history of Zimbabwe. And today in our program, we'll be talking to Macloud Tshawe, Nongoloba. Yes, and is the former member of the NSO. We want to find out what the NSO was all about. We've heard so many stories about NSO, and we hope today we'll even get a clear picture about NSO. Babu Tshawe siyalibingelela.
Right, NSO was actually in full, was the national organization for security, looking after izinto zezapho, which is national security and order. Some people say national security and organization. No, it is order, because we wanted order within our forces. Now, first of all, personally, I was trained in the Soviet Union in Russia, and I had a group which I was actually leading of 25. And we did quite a lot in intelligence. The reason I'm going to say that is because you must understand what NSO was actually covering. We trained in intelligence itself, counterintelligence. We trained in civilian intelligence. We trained in army intelligence and whatever. And as well as doing intelligence on border guards, intelligence on immigration and customs as it is. And thereafter, when we actually finished our training.
So which year was this?
That was in 1977 beginning. And when we actually went back to Zambia, we had a group that was actually trained in intelligence. They are still alive, some of them. And it was the time when NSO was actually, the ZPRA intelligence was restructured to be NSO. And before then, there was what you call special affairs, which was led by Comrade Mnyanyi. Comrade Mnyanyi, everybody knows him. He's late now with Comrade Mazinyane, and Comrade Ucici, we called him Ucici. And, well, I would forget some of the guys. And then, that organization was restructured and renamed NSO. I wasn't there when it was actually renamed. And then when I came back, and in Lusaka, I already found some of my comrades deployed in these various departments by Titi Utabengwa, working with people like Uswazini, Ombizo, Cotton Puche, you know Cotton Puche, Nefat Madlela, Omlilo, and so on and so forth. Dabenga was actually the actually head of NSO. He's the director of NSO, as well as in the army as well. He was involved. And having said that, under him, there were departments like the administration, which was responsible for research and development, that is actually getting all the information from the party as well as from ZPRA And we look at that, they looked at that information, and from home as well. We looked at all that information and actually scrutinized it, true or not, and whatever, false, so on and so forth. That was their baby. And then we had a Department of Intelligence, which was headed by Comrade Victor Mlambo. Victor Mlambo with Comrade Brisk Dube, we called him. I think you get those names. I'll give you a paper. You write those names in full. We then have a Department of Correctional Services, which was under Comrade Buche, who was actually heading the counterintelligence. As I've already said, Victor Mlambo was heading intelligence, this counterintelligence, which deals with internal issues, and intelligence deals with external issues like overseas and so on and so forth. So he had his deputies. I once deputized Comrade Buche, but then I was quickly moved personally onto recruitment and training. That was actually my department within ENSO. Now, my assignment really was to find suitable people to be trained in that department, not just. Well, what I was looking for then was educated people, though it was difficult to find those people. So Comrade Diti Dabengwa would assign me to go and scout in Botswana, to go and scout within ZPRA forces. Even if you were trained within ZPRA and we found you can be retrained as an NSO guy, would fish you out through the high command of ZPRA, right? You go to Cuba, or you go to Russia, you go to Yugoslavia, where we were trained, and all sorts of things. And quite a number of people were actually called from ZPRA. Comrade Masego used to give me those people himself. And I trained quite a number of those people as customs and excise people, immigration people. We had a lot of them here that I knew who were working within immigration in this country after independence. Well-trained people, and their minimum qualifications from school, they were Form 4s right up to A levels. Some of them had actually left university here, and they were actually conscripted within NSO because we wanted quality people that were actually going to run the country when we come in. When we're talking about forensic and all that type of stuff, you need an educated person to understand that language. So I was then getting these people locally in Zambia, externally in Botswana, externally in other countries as far as Britain, as far as America, and so on and so forth, those that wanted to come and join the struggle. And for your own information, some of them would leave there straight into training, right? People never knew them in Lusaka. And then from there, they would come for some briefing in Lusaka, and then redeployed wherever they were working overseas. Some people don't know that. And having said that, within ZPRA itself, what we were doing as a department, we were not part of ZPRA. It's like a CIO. CIO works hand in glove with the army. If you find anybody saying we were spying on the army, that person, you must tell him he himself was actually a spy on ZPRA or a spy on ZAP. He was sent by the enemy. if you have any brains, you should understand that there's no army that works without an intelligence organization within it. And as NSO, if you have 2-3 people within a brigade, it's easy to actually turn all those people around and understand that is intelligence, and understand what ZAPU is all about, what ZPRA is all about. We don't deploy a brigade within an army. You deploy, a number of people to be able to actually convince the people to understand what goes on. So that was our job. It was not spying on anyone, but our partly was to actually fish out people who were actually enemies of ZPRA, enemies of ZAPU, because those people were there. Personally, we could actually get them right from Botswana on talking to the guy. Exactly this person has been sent by the enemy. And then you don't say anything. You put him in the plane there and there with others as if he's going to school. Then they go and deal with that guy there. And you'll find that that person will give you other people who are already deployed within the ZPRA units who have already been trained, by us. And they left home going to ZPRA, having been trained either by the SEDU scouts here, either by the army itself. We actually found all those things within these guys.
I've heard some, like I said in the beginning, that we've said so many stories about the NSO. Some were saying you were actually recruiting, a British, a Rhodesian, guys who were linked to the Rhodesian police and so forth. And probably you've explained why people felt like. But what was your relationship with the ZPRA side of as NSO? What was the relationship between NSO and ZPRA?
In as far as I'm concerned, the relationship was so smooth, it was so good, because the hierarchy of the army, Lookout Masuku, Nikita Mangena, Sifa Stele, or Changane, or Masala, you can name them all. Comrade Mpogo is around as it is right now. He can vouch for that there's no army that actually operates without intelligence. Remember, it is not anything that the NSO came up without involving the command of ZPRA. It was a request by the army, the request by the political side that we must have an intelligence department that is going to work hand in glove with the army. Those that did not understand that, you are talking about the Tom, Dick, and Harris. The people right at the top knew what was going on, because we had to defend our commanders. We had to defend the struggle. If we didn't do that, we wouldn't be where we are, though we didn't get anything after the struggle. We still nothing. But that was our duty, to actually fish out SEDU scouts within ZPRA, within ZAPU, not our own people. If you were clean, why should you be worried? There was no problem at all. We were working hand in glove, and we deployed a number of NSO people in the front. There are other comrades who I don't want to in this interview, mention by name, but I'll mention by name after the interview, who say didn't train, didn't do this, didn't. A person like that, there's something cockeye in his head, because Diti was involved in a number of skirmishes with Okrisani in the country here. He was the first person wachaywa lidwala eZambezi, crossing Zambezi into Zimbabwe, the Wanki area and whatever. He was there. And then he wouldn't work with people like Jom Ise, and Jom Ise was the commander of Umkhonto Wesizwe and others. He wouldn't work with Omangena. He wouldn't work with Ochangane if he was not a trained person. And most of these guys who talk like that, let me tell you, were recruited and trained by Dabengwa himself. The only reason they are talking like that is he was leading the intelligence. They wanted to lead the intelligence themselves. But because of things that I am not going to talk about in this interview, right? They were actually redeployed, and some of them were actually sent back for retraining for things that they were doing very dubious. We know about that. So you must tell them to shut up, because if we come to that, we will expose them. We're still alive. Didn't talk about those things because he was not a talkative person. But some of us, if outside the interview, we will tell you what they were doing, and which NSO stopped that rot. We stopped it.
So there is this belief that as NSO, you destroyed the ZPRA military intelligence. Is there an element of truth?
That's, like I said, is ZPRA military intelligence. That is all hogwash. As I say, there was a restructuring of that department, and it became national security and order. A person like Nabat Madida, Nkosana Dlodlo is still around, Nefat Madlela, he's late now, were actually seconded to the army headquarters in Zambia to go and head NSO in that very ZPRA department. And these people were redeployed. Mnyanyi was redeployed in, where was this? In Tripoli, whatever, Ethiopia. And Comrade Mazinyane was sent for retraining in Yugoslavia, and with some other generals who are still serving in the army. So it doesn't mean we as NSO, they were crushed. If they were crushed by their same commanders who were giving us orders. Mangena was giving us orders as NSO. Lookout Masuku was giving us as NSO. Like I was in Botswana, Lookout Masuku would tell me, I want A, B, C, D, and all that. So I was doubling between Masuku and Dabengwa, some of the things, though I was reporting direct to Dabengwa. And by the way, Dabengwa and Masuku were one people. Dabengwa and Nikita Mangena, you would find them doing all sorts of things together. There's nothing like we destroyed ZPRA intelligence. That is nonsense. They didn't understand how it worked. All it was is that it was reorganized. That's all.
So, like someone who was in the intelligence, going towards ceasefire elections, what was your mood? Did you think you guys were winning as the NSO?
It's a very interesting one. For starters, I was in Botswana. And in Botswana, I was getting quite a lot of things from Zimbabwe, from Rhodesia then. I knew ZANU was actually working on tribal sort of restructuring the whole thing. So we knew in NSO that it was going to be a very difficult thing to overcome. But, and a very big but, and I know Dabengwa was refusing. Old Josh went ahead with this particular arrangement. If it were NSO, would have left that Lancaster House thing and went ahead and did whatever we were doing. Because what pushed these people to the Lancaster House agreement was because of the heat that was actually felt within the country, especially the oil that was actually burnt in Harare, and especially the plane that was hit, and they nearly hit Peter Walls and his wife, and he was saved by his wife, by the way. If he hadn't delayed fishing, he would have been actually hit. I was in Botswana by that time. So we knew it was going to be very difficult to win this war inside the country because of the Shona element in it from Zandla And we said as NSO, would rather be in the front. But the politicians, when we came to what you call these elections, they wanted to be in the front. When they felt the hit, that they were being hit, right, ambushed and whatever, they started saying, Bafana, Hambani Pambi. It was already too late. Zandla had deployed their people, and their executive was actually at the back. They were using the army. We wanted to use the same tactic so that we meet the guys. But our people as ZAPU, they said, ZAPU is a people's organization. They still have the people. We said, you don't have the people because these people are intimidating the people. They are going to vote otherwise. And that's exactly what happened. By the way, the elections was a massive rigging. That I can tell you right up to now. I have some people who were in the police, the white police. They didn't count some of the votes were coming from Gokwe, Gweru, and whatever. But the elections were actually announced there. The boxes were still in their yards. They were not counted. So how did ZANU win the elections? They didn't win the elections. Whoever says ZANU started rigging from 1980, it is true. That is what happened.
You know, you mentioned there's some, you know, ZANU, I mean, the ZPRA or ZAPU has been, you know, like the culture of secrecy, so to speak. There's an element of the attack of the oil. And up to now, you hardly hear anyone from ZPRA saying, I'm the one who did it.
That is a very dicey one. Because some of those guys who did that, they are still alive. They are still here.
So why are they not willing to talk?
Well, what we know is there are people who are still looking for those guys. There are white people who are actually looking for those guys. Maybe that is their concern. One of them is in Gweru, who was actually the commander in that area. And Major Spona, who was actually the frontal commander, he has written a book about that. I think, you know, he knows very well. And then Patrick Mandu, who I was working with, he was within the ZPRA intelligence. He's one of the guys who masterminded these things. He's already late now, Patrick Mandu. He was there, you know, from Mashonaland West into Harare. Unfortunately, he's late, and you know, we can talk about that. I can connect you to some of those people you want to know.
Yeah, because well, I would understand in terms of the plane, because they might be saying, well, there were civilians there, we don't want. But it was an oil, you know, storage, no human beings. So they must be actually proud that they did it.
Well, we can talk about that. You see, I am one person who doesn't want to claim I know everything that was happening within the organization. ZPRA was a massive organization. I wasn't there when this happened, but the comrades that did it are actually there. I wouldn't want to actually indulge in something that, you know, I wouldn't be able to actually give you more information about. So that is not intelligence. Let me talk about things that I know. There are people who can talk about that, but that was actually was masterminded by the ZPRA forces from Mfakose in a taxi. I know about that. That is as far as I can go. And they went and hit that thing. So if you ask who outside those lights of yours.
So then there is the issue of, I mean, Zimbabwean politics and both parties, as well as the problems of tribalism. Did you, I mean, we'll talk about this in a moment, but did you ever feel effects being, you know, did you ever feel tribalism in ZPRA or in ZAPU?
Not at all. In that, ZAPU itself was a composition of all tribes. There were Kalangas there, there were Amandebele, there were Shonas in there, and you know, within ZPRA, Amakalanga ayekona, Amashona ayekona, Amandebele ayekona. When I operated from the, you know, Southern Front, We had people like Ostulo, Omatiwaza, people like Mecha Spona, who is also Ichahades Kalangenele Vera Konangapa, or Chavunduga, comes from Kezi, or Makosi. I didn't know where Makosi was coming from. It was a well-integrated army, and I wouldn't feel any sort of tribalism within ZPRA. Yes, I cannot deny that there could be friction here and there. That was actually an individual sort of feeling. So personally, I didn't feel it. I don't know. I may be wrong.
Yeah, you are from Xhosa yourself. How do you end up in ZPRA?
How do I end up in ZPRA? Yes. Well, after the elections, as you know, there was integration. And
how do you join the war? How did you end up in the war?
Okay. Well, in the war situation, as I say, I was deployed in the intelligence department and deployed in Botswana. And in Botswana, responsible for the refugees. And that was actually after the capture of various people like Ethan Dube or Black Swine, Chilis, Umyamana, you know him from Tembotema, Omar Kepesi and them. I was in a hot spot in Botswana. And how I survived was because I cultivated my way into the Botswana Defense Forces, where I had good relations with the command. And then Usmare Wami, who was married to my sister, Kontokwa, the other side of Plumtree, he had his nephew was working for the CID, Manyining. So we also talked to the police. If I can tell you something that will surprise you, and it was not allowed in Botswana, but we made it possible because of our comrades were getting captured all the time. I was actually using Botswana Defense Forces jeep if I am going out on missions like Edukwe, Slibepikwe, and other places. And I could use the police vehicles in an army uniform and in a police uniform, not as a small soldier, but as really the big one as well. So if I can tell you, one day at Matinare, we were stopped by the Rhodesians, and I said to my friend Umatse, Mecha Matse, I said, those are Rhodesians. He says, you are right, because I never deployed anybody in this area. What should we do? Because there were 4 jeeps that were actually following us. And I said, no, let's not assault, because we don't know how these guys have deployed here. Let's get to Slibepikwe. We get to Slibepikwe and organize. I'll tell you, we eliminated quite a number. I think there were about 17 or there who had deployed in Botswana. I could have been captured that day if we did not play that trick. Anyway, the end of it all was that we came back home. Coming back